Has the modern church turned the biblical tithe into a cash tax on Christian salaries? A major question in the tithing debate is whether the practice taught in many churches today is the same as the tithe described in the Bible. Many Christians are told to give exactly 10% of their salary or income to the church, often as if this were a direct biblical command. But the biblical tithe was not simply a universal cash tax on wages. Do you understand? The biblical tithe was mainly agricultural. Under the Mosaic law, tithing was tied to land, crops, and livestock. Am I right? Okay. Now, Leviticus 27:30 says, and I quote, "And all the tithes of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's." There's no controversy about that. It all belongs to God. The tithing. Deuteronomy 14:22 also speaks of tithing the increase of the fields. The Bible does not explicitly say every Israelite must give 10% of his wages. There is no place in the Bible that this was recorded. Okay? Nor does the New Testament say, I'm talking about the New Testament now. The New Testament, it does not say that every Christian must give 10% of his income to the church. There's no place it is recorded in the Bible. If you doubt, go to the Bible, search from Genesis to Revelation. You're not going to see any command like that. The tithe belonged to Israel's covenant system. Are you listening to me? It belongs to the Israel covenant system. The tithe was part of the Mosaic covenant and supported the Levites, who had no normal land inheritance. They don't have any place to cultivate and all the rest of them. They only serve God. They are priests. Numbers 18:21 says, "And behold, I have given the children of Levi all the tenth in Israel for an inheritance." Because they don't have any land to cultivate, God has given them 10% of all the crops gathered by the Israelites. Okay, so the tithe was connected to Israel's priesthood, worship, festivals, and care for the needy. Not a simple formula of income times 10%. I hope you're reading me. Use your brain. Money could represent the tithe. Yes, money could represent the tithe. You know, it was agricultural, but the money can represent it. Deuteronomy 14:24-26 allows the value of the tithe to be converted into money if the worship site was too far away. This shows that money could represent the tithe in certain cases, but it does not mean the tithe was originally a universal cash payment on wages. What about Malachi 3:10? Malachi 3:8-10 is often used to support modern salary tithing. Do you understand? Malachi says, "Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse." That is the way it's written. But Malachi was speaking to Israel under the Mosaic covenant, with the temple storehouse in view. Applying that directly to every Christian requires interpretation, not just quotation. Do you understand? I'm talking to pastors now. Okay, let's see what Jesus said about tithes. Jesus mentioned tithe in Matthew 23, verse 23. But he was speaking to people still under the law. He affirmed tithing there. Yet, his main concern was that justice, mercy, and faithfulness must not be neglected. That passage does not clearly establish a universal Christian salary tithe. Okay, in New Testament giving, let's talk about what New Testament says about giving. The New Testament strongly encourages generosity, but it does not command a fixed 10%. Do you understand? It does not command a fixed 10%. 2 Corinthians 9:7 says, and I quote, "Every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity. Remember, not grudgingly or of necessity. It is not when you whine somebody like a generator and he brings, not of necessity. The emphasis is on willing, proportionate, and generous giving, not compulsion. I hope you're thinking it. Not compulsion. Tithing as principle or law. Some Christians treat 10% as a helpful minimum standard. Others believe the New Testament leaves the amount to conscience, ability, and love. Both views can appeal to biblical principles, but it is a stronger claim to say that the New Testament explicitly commands every Christian to give 10% of salary to the church. Has the church changed the tithe? Has the church changed the tithe? Modern church practice has often turned the biblical tithe into something different. Yes. In ancient Israel, it's crops and livestock. Now, in modern churches, it is salary and cash. Ancient system, Levites, temples, festivals, and the needy. Then, modern system, local church support. Ancient covenant, Mosaic law. Modern applications, all Christians everywhere. That is what it is. Think about it. This may be a reasonable adaptation, but it should be recognized as an application, not a direct biblical formula. Now let's see the dangers of turning giving into a tax. The dangers of turning giving into a tax. When tithing becomes an absolute requirement, it can feel like religious taxation. The New Testament presents giving as an act of faith, gratitude, compassion, and love, not a mechanical transaction. Okay, let me conclude. From me, I don't know about you. In my own conclusion, the Bible teaches generosity and includes a tithe system. It also shows that agricultural tithes could be converted into money in certain situations. But the claim that every Christian is explicitly commanded to pay 10% of salary to the church is not stated that way in the New Testament. It's not. So, Christians may choose to tithe as a discipline. Yes, it's correct. But it is important to see that modern salary tithing is an interpretation and development, not a direct biblical command. Now, the real question is not only how much to give, but how to use what we have to honor God, help others, and support genuine ministry. Biblical giving is meant to reflect faith, gratitude, compassion, and love. Is that a cut?